Hello, 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 my friends. Hey, this is Rosa. Hopefully, your favorite real estate broker. And today we're doing a little something different, right? Today is Therapy Thursday with Rosa concerning real estate because I know that there are some people, and rightfully so, right? They are kind of freaking out about what's going on in the real estate market for them, right? They're not exactly sure. They have emotions, and there's nothing wrong with having emotions surrounding of your particular situation, right? So we are going to do Therapy Thursday. So I have a couple of things that I want to mention to you right from the start. And as things are happening, as things come up that you have questions about, all you need to do is put it in the chat, right? Put it in the DM space, and you let me know. Hey, what kind of questions you have going on? What is the situation that you want to talk about? Okay, but in the meantime, I am going to kind of go over first of all the joy versus value when you are making some remodeling decisions, right? Because we know that decisions vary depending upon what your affordability is. Hey, Erica, thank you so much for joining us. So we are right now for our Therapy Thursday on real estate. We're going to talk about the joy versus the value. And so we know consumers have many different reasons for completing remodeling projects in their home. John, thank you so much for joining us. Ogden, remodeling projects are important because what do? They increase enjoyment, they increase home value, or that it might increase both your home value and your enjoyment. But there's one thing for certain, my friends, and that one thing is that there's a lot more of remodeling happening. And housing affordability is not the primary reason for it. And emotions are flying high. Carla, Mindy, Claudia, thank you so much for joining us. Emotions, right? Therapy Thursday. Let's try to get these emotions. You have every right to be upset. Oh man, now's not the time. I didn't want to have to remodel my kitchen. I didn't want to have to redo the bathroom. But maybe you have a family member who's moving in. Maybe you have a family member that doesn't plan on leaving. Maybe you wanted to buy or sell your property, and for one reason or another, it's not that right time. Now, you know, of course, if it's the right time, all you need to do is call me up. And whether you're in Connecticut or not, I'm going to be able to help you get in touch with a real estate agent that you will love and that you can trust. Okay. But let's talk about some numbers this Therapy Thursday. In 2024, members of the National Association of the Remodeling Industry reported a 42% increase in contracting projects, and Americans spent an estimated $603 billion on home remodeling projects overall. And that is according to the 2025 Remodeling Impact Report. Hey, Pramila, thank you so much for joining us. And this report is a report that's published each year by the National Association of the Remodeling Industry and the wonderful world of the National Association of Realtors. So this report assesses the reasons homeowners undertake remodeling projects at all, the outcomes of these projects, and the increased happiness. Yes, it's Therapy Thursday. We want you to have increased happiness experienced in the home once a project is completed. Well, let's talk about that. And there is definitely a way in which people will feel more comfortable. There's a way in which the joy score. What are the remodeling projects that received the highest joy scores? So let's talk about that on a ranking from 1 to 10 based on the happiness homeowners reported upon completion. Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, hey, Minnie, Kiki, Carmen, thank you so much for joining us. The joy score upon completion of an additional bedroom suite gets a 10. All right. Who doesn't love an additional primary bedroom suite? Hey, Wyona, thank you for reaching out to us. We appreciate you joining us. Primary bedroom suite gets a 10 on a joy score. Kitchen upgrade. I had one of those. My wife and I love it. We're looking at our kitchen and it's absolutely beautiful. That gets a 10. And a new roof. Now, if you need a roofer, I got a great one. You just let me know. I'll put you in touch with him right away. Even his wife works with me in real estate, and we are ready to help you out because I can tell you a new roof. Well, guess what, my friend? That makes you feel more comfortable. That makes you feel safer, that you don't have to worry about water leaking when it starts raining. Okay. So once again, on a scale of 1 to 10, joy scores, happiness of homeowners reported upon completion, an additional bedroom, primary bedroom suite, a kitchen upgrade, and new roofing. Now, in contrast to that, the remodeling projects with the highest cost recovery include, right? So, what are you going to get your money back the most? Something I need to do is a new steel front door. That's 100%. Hi, Vicky, Nana. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, remodeling projects with the highest cost recovery, a new steel front door, closet renovation that was 83%, and a new fiberglass front door 80%. So those are the remodeling projects with the highest cost recovery. So remember, most of the time when you make improvements to your home, you don't get dollar for value. You can't say, hey, Rob, you know what? I just spent $30,000 on remodeling my kitchen. So my house is worth $30,000 more. Well, that's probably not going to happen, my friend. It's not that I want to tell you that's the way it has to be, but I can tell you it's probably not going to happen. But a new steel front door, closet renovation, you probably get 83% of your money back. Fiberglass front door, about 80%. So when we talk about these remodeling projects, and remember, I'm just giving you data from what the reports are telling me. Okay. So when homeowners take on these remodeling projects, what remains intriguing is the disparity between the joy experienced post model and the actual cost recovery. And that came right from Jessica Lotz. She's the NAR, National Association of Realtors, Deputy Chief Economist and Vice President of Research. She says, while homeowners take pride in seeing their personal taste and design choices come to life, realtors may recommend, such as myself, different strategies to enhance the property's resale value. And that's what I'm telling you. Don't just automatically say, well, I'm going to do this, this, and this because I know it's going to make more money for my house. Because in many cases, my friend, you might not be right and you might waste your money. So all you have to do is give me a call or someone like me, a top producer. In fact, I'll give you my number right now. Some people might think this is reckless, but guess what? I'm here to help. So my name, Rob Rosa, 860-558-2122. If you're in here in Connecticut and you want me to do a room by room walkthrough, all you need to do is let me know. If you're in a different state, I have a network of agents that we can trust to help you every step of the way. Okay. So remember the top remodeling projects that realtors, such as myself, recommend sellers complete, right? If they need to make some updates, well, number one is painting the home, right? That is probably one of the highest things. You know, if a room or two or three need paint, just do it. It's usually not as expensive as you think. And you do get your money's worth. Hey, John. Hey, Lorena, Diane, thank you so much for joining us. Right. I definitely appreciate it. So, painting a room, painting the house, that makes a big difference. If the roof is really, really bad and it looks like it's leaking or it doesn't have any useful life, and you can get it done inexpensively by someone you know or even yourself, yes, you want to do it. But I can't promise you that if you spend $20,000 on this new roof, that you're going to get your money back, because in many cases, you're not. Okay. If you plan on doing that kitchen upgrade or a bathroom renovation and you're going to sell it, I would not spend the money on the big remodeling jobs unless you can do it yourself and save some time and money. Hey, Diane, Kim, Trish, thank you so much for joining us. So, right now, what we're talking about on this Therapy Thursday on real estate is we're talking about the joys versus the value of remodeling homes. So, let's talk about the main reasons that consumers are remodeling homeowners. So the primary reasons, according to this report, is upgrading worn out surfaces. That sounds about right. I mean, you do not want to have some kitchen floors where the linoleum is all worn out and now you need to look at the plywood, the subfloor. That doesn't make sense, my friends, right? Finishes, material. So that's about 20% of the time that people say they need to upgrade worn out surfaces or worn out finishes. 19% of homeowners are saying their primary reason to remodel is to improve energy efficiency. So that's kind of interesting. 19% of the people who are doing that remodeling think that they want to improve energy efficiency. 18%, this is kind of funny. Therapy Thursday, I'm not here to pass judgment, but 18% say they just want to change. Right? And I could see that sometimes it's like that with the color of a room or the type of flooring, but don't waste your money, my friends. Right? Especially if you're going to plan on selling in the next couple of years. If it's not worn out and so forth, you might not want to spend that money, because that money in your pocket, that money investing is probably going to be better for you. And 18% also are preparing to sell within the next 2 years. So once again, I'm putting myself out there to say, hey, listen, if you're thinking about selling in the next 2 years, give me a call. I'll come out, I'll help you out, I'll give you my advice, I'll give you my knowledge, my experience. I don't mind doing that. All right. So this report once again demonstrates that the demand for remodeling remains robust. Okay. Many people are out there. Home remodeling is going up. Homeowners are discovering significant value and joy from doing these remodeling investments. It could be those smaller upgrades, such as the front doors and some windows, and it could be something huge like a kitchen or an additional primary bedroom suite. Okay. So while housing affordability and rising mortgage rates have been considered potential motivators for home remodeling, most consumers, which is 89% according to this report, said that housing affordability was not a deciding factor in their decision to remodel. So 89% report that housing affordability was not a deciding factor. However, for a smaller segment of customers or consumers or homeowners, 9% say housing affordability did serve as a motivating factor for undertaking remodeling projects. So there's a lot of people that are thinking, oh, people are just remodeling their home because they can't afford to move. Well, I can tell you that that's not true in many cases. Homeowners right now, for the most part, and I'm talking about Hartford and 40 miles out, most homeowners, they have the equity, they have the income, and housing affordability is not that deciding factor. Basically, they are doing their remodeling projects because they want to have more joy. They want to enjoy their home more, and they have no plans on moving. In fact, yesterday I spoke to a woman. I was making my regular phone calls, and I said, "Excuse me, miss, let's call her Betsy." I said, "Betsy," I said, "you inquired about a home that I have for sale, and I just wanted to reach out and introduce myself and find out if you have any questions about the home you inquired on." And she says, "Oh, I was just interested. I was looking for my son, but I have no desire to move. I love my home. I'm not planning on moving out of state. So, you know what? I'm probably not a good customer for you." And I told her, I said, "Well, Betsy," I said, "I appreciate you being so candid with me, but I can tell you that I am that person that I'm available in the long run if you need me. So if something comes up, if you or a family member or friend needs help on credit repair, I'm available. I'm here. If you or a family or friend want to get a real estate pre-licensing want to get a real estate license and need to come to the pre-licensing school, which that is what you need to do in the state of Connecticut, then I am here." But let's get back on track. So, once again, many homeowners, they are not saying that housing affordability is the motivating factor. What they're saying is the joy. So on Therapy Thursday, I'm going to encourage you, increase your joy, find a way, right? To increase your joy. Live a happier life. Hey, Anna Jean, the Ralph, thank you so much for joining us. Now, how are many of these homeowners paying for these projects, right? These remodeling projects that we're talking about. Well, here's what the report says. Consumers primarily relied on home equity loans or lines of credit, and that's 54%. In fact, when I did some work, paid some in cash, and got a home equity loan. So it's 54%. Savings, 29%. Okay. And 10% credit cards. Stay away from those credit cards. Remember, I repair credit. You do not want to be putting all that stuff on your credit cards. It's not going to help you, and it's going to put you in the poorhouse sooner or later, my friend. So please just stay away from those. So interestingly, and this is right from the report with the National Association of Realtors, Jessica Lautz. She said, interestingly, despite the lock in effect where low interest mortgages discourage homeowners from moving, housing affordability isn't a significant reason why consumers choose to remodel their homes. So that's exactly what I just said. Instead, she added the substantial housing equity, right? People have all kinds of equity right now in their homes. Now, do you know what equity is? If you do, that's great. God bless you. But if you don't, I'm going to explain it to you. And it's really pretty simple. Housing equity, the amount of money that you have available in your home, is the difference between what the market value is and how much you owe. So if your home is worth $400,000 and you owe a mortgage of 100,000, you have equity of $300,000. And I can tell you, there's a lot of people that are in that situation or even have more equity than that, right? So the substantial housing equity that homeowners have built over time enables them to invest in transforming their homes while they remain in place. And that, my friends, if you read between the lines, is such a great reason why you need to stop renting. You see, owning a home over the long term builds equity most of the time, the vast majority of the time. It builds wealth most of the time. Yes, there are moments where if you buy at the wrong time, sell at the wrong time, and you really have to be like, have some really bad situations, but the vast majority, you buy a home, you keep it over the long run, you make your payments, you save money instead of renting, and you will be better off financially most of the time. Now, there's always those exceptions, and if you went through something hard like that, I'm sorry to hear that. But for those of you who did that, did what we just spoke about, hey, God bless you, and I'm so happy that things worked out because most of the time it does. Okay. Now, homeowners report that the most important outcomes from remodeling projects are improved functionality and livability. So that's number one. That's a 28%. Homeowners reporting that the most important outcomes from these remodeling projects are improved functionality and livability. 23% said that it was an important outcome to have durable and long lasting results. Like, I like that, right? For instance, even with the appliances, that's something that's aggravating me these days because it seems like these appliances, they don't last as long as they used to. But to me, that's important to have long lasting results. I don't want to have to redo a kitchen or a bathroom or get a new refrigerator or stove every 5, 6 years. I mean, think about it. These days, you buy a refrigerator, it costs you, let's say, $2,400. So 6 years, you 2,400 divided by six. What? Every year, you have to basically put aside $400 to buy a refrigerator. That's crazy. Okay. Also, 23% said enhanced beauty and aesthetics. Doesn't that sound so nice, right? Enhanced beauty and aesthetics. And that's really one of those things when we talk about joy, right? The joy versus the value. Okay. Also, let's talk about following when everything is said and done. Joy versus value remodeling decisions. Okay. How are people feeling? Well, 64%, according to the Remodeling Impact Report, says homeowners expressed a greater desire to be in their homes. S- So, how nice is that? That more than half of those people said, hey, you know what? I love to be in my home. I love my home. Don't you love to go to a place at the end of the day that you worked all day and you want to go home and relax? Don't you, in a, you know, weird kind of way, deserve that if you're out there working hard all day? Okay. And 46% reported increased enjoyment of their living spaces. So 64% said they have expressed a greater desire to be in their homes. 46% reported increased enjoyment of their living spaces. And here is the icing on the cake, my friends. If cost were not a factor, 92% indicated that they would choose to remodel additional areas of their home, right? So most people in the long run, when I take a look at everything we just spoke about, most people in the long run, they feel the joy, they feel the value in the long term when it comes to remodeling their home. So hopefully you found that information to be useful. If you're not sure, if you're like, hey, well, what's that all about? I want to talk more about it. I have more questions. All you need to do is to put it in the comments and ask me, and we can definitely talk about it, right? We can definitely talk about what kind of questions you have on joy versus remodeling. All right. So that's really everything that I wanted to talk about concerning that. Now, next, I did have a couple of things that I wanted to mention. And once again, thank you so much, Sassy, Anna Jean, for joining us. Of course, if you have any questions, things that you want to talk about, that you want to go over, please definitely let me know. But what I'd like to go over next, and this is part of therapy, right? This is part of real estate therapy, is that there are some people that they just went through this crazy thing called taxes. Oh man, I got to take a drink for this. And believe it or not, we talked about equity. Well, I know of some people that they have huge amounts of equity in an investment property and they're afraid to sell it because they don't want to pay those capital gains taxes, or now in their lifetime is not the right time for them to pay those capital gains taxes as far as they're concerned. So there is a powerful tool, and this tool is called the 1031 exchange. Okay. Now, when we talk about this 1031 exchange, remember, I have to tell you that I'm advising you to consult with tax and legal advisors regarding the exchange status of a property because I can't make any particular promises. I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney, and I don't even play one on TV. But guess what I have in my pocket, right? I have experts who help their clients. I have advisors who help their clients about the 1031 exchange. I can give some knowledge, I can initiate things, right? I can give you the basics, but we need, if this is something that you might be interested in, hey, Tisha, hey, Louie, we need to be able to get to those tax and legal advisors to make sure that they're going to give you exactly the information that you need so that you can do what? Defer capital gains taxes. So, what is a 1031 exchange? Let's say you have an investment property. Let's say you have this 4 unit commercial building, or you have a condo, or you have a little strip plaza, right? Whatever it might be, you want to sell it, but you bought it 30, 40, 50 years ago. Maybe it's your mother that owns it, your father that owns it, and they're worried about taxes. Well, the 1031 exchange, you can defer, not avoid. You can defer, which means pay them at another time by selling that property and reinvesting the proceeds from the sale of that investment property into a like kind property. Oh man, so right now you should be like, and you're like, that's right, Rob. This is Therapy Thursday. Oh, you're making me feel so much better. You're giving me peace of mind because that's what I really want to do. It sounds like I'm making a joke of it, but I'm not. I want to give you peace of mind. I want you to feel comfortable with things. So once again, you reinvest the proceeds from the sale of investment property into a like kind property. Now, to ensure that this is done successfully, I have to tell you, right, as an investor, that there's several rules. There's a lot of rules. And that's why we need to get the tax and the legal advisors to help us out every step of the way. We're not going to do this on our own. You don't have to worry about like, oh, Rob Rose is going to take care of it and I'm all set because I can tell you it won't happen that way. I can initiate things, I can be involved with things, I can consult you, I can give you a little bit of advice here and there, but we need to get the experts who do this every day specifically. Okay. So, one of the rules is called maintaining consistent vesting. VESTING. So, what is vesting? What is vesting? Vesting refers to the legal ownership of a property. When you hold title to a property, your name or the name of the entity, like an LLC or a trust, is listed on the deed. Okay, so that's what vesting is, refers to the legal ownership of a property. Okay, another type of thing to consider. Well, what is the same taxpayer rule in a 1031 exchange? The same taxpayer rule mandates that the taxpayer who sells the relinquished property must be the same taxpayer who acquires the replacement property. So just as a quick little example, let's just make pretend your father is selling this, 10 family property, and you come up with this idea. They want to move down to Florida, but they want to buy a multifamily 10 family unit property in Florida where they're going to move from Connecticut to Florida. And then somebody comes up with the idea, yes, but we don't want to put it under my father's name. We want to put it under my mother's name. So that might be an issue with the 1031 exchange, right? Because what did we say? The same taxpayer rule mandates that the taxpayer who sells the relinquished property must be the same taxpayer who acquires the replacement property. All right. Hey, Kenya, Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us. And again, anyone who has any comments, who wants to even just to say hi, who wants to share, who wants to give likes, if you're enjoying this, if you're getting some good information, please give me some likes and shares. All that stuff is great. And it just keeps the flow of the live going. All right. So, why is the same taxpayer rule important in this 1031 exchange so that you can defer capital gains taxes? Well, the primary reason for the same taxpayer rule is to prevent abuse of the tax deferral benefits. By requiring the same taxpayer to be both the seller and buyer of the properties, the wonderful world of the IRS, right? Internal Revenue Service, you might have heard of them before. They ensure that the exchange is a legitimate continuation of the taxpayer's investment. If the rule is not followed, the IRS can disallow the exchange, leading to immediate capital gains taxes on the sale of the relinquished property. So, once again, it's important to have that same taxpayer rule. If you feel like you have an exception that you're not 100% sure about it, all you need to do is reach out to me, Rob Rosa, 860-558-2122, and I will put you in touch with the person that's going to be able to help us, that you're going to feel comfortable with. Hey, Sassy, Janice, thank you so much for joining us. All right. So, how do we ensure compliance with the same taxpayer rule? So, to comply with the same taxpayer rule, the taxpayer holding title of the relinquished property, right? So, the taxpayer who's on the selling properties title must match the taxpayer holding title of the replacement property. You have the relinquished property with which you're selling, and then you have the like property, which is the replacement property, the like kind. This means that if a husband and wife sell the relinquished property together, then husband and wife must purchase the replacement property. If an entity like an LLC or a corporation sells the property, the same entity must also purchase the new property. All right. Makes sense to everyone? If it does, throw those likes, throw those shares out there. Now, let's, really where we started this was talking about these vesting questions. And that's what this is. Who's holding title? Whose name is on the deed? So people have some common questions that I want to go over with you. And so hopefully you're going to find this helpful, right? Can they add their spouse? Can they add a sibling? Can they add a child to the title? So here is the way that it works most of the time. Adding a spouse, sibling, or child to the title of a property before or during a 1031 exchange can jeopardize the exchange validity due to changes in the property's vesting. Any alterations in how this property is titled, let me tell you, it can complicate this requirement and potentially, and everything here is potentially, disqualify the exchange or create a tax consequence. So you will want to consider the timing of any of these title changes. If you need to add a family member to the title, it's going to be crucial to plan the timing of this change carefully. If you need to add a family member to the title, it's going to be crucial to plan the timing of this change carefully. Really, when it comes down to it, any adjustments to the vesting should be made well in advance of the exchange or postponed until after the exchange is completed. And so those are things that are important. There will be a lot of different spousal scenarios and different solutions that can come that we can talk about, that we can get from the 1031 consultant. All right. So those things are really, really important for us to make sure that we understand. Now, what a lot of people are getting into these days, and you probably see it all over the internet and Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, and you need to put your house and everything you own in a trust. And if you put it in a trust, it's protected this way and that way. And and in a lot of cases, that stuff does make sense. So, what do you do if you have an investment property in a trust? How does that work when it comes down to the 1031 exchange? So let's talk about those things. That could be a question for you. What if my property, my investment property, is in a trust? Okay. So there's different types of trusts that can have varying implications for the exchange process. And it is crucial to ensure that the trust structure complies with IRS regulations to avoid disqualification. Okay. So we're going to go over three different types of trusts when it comes to 1031 exchange and how the IRS may treat it. So, a revocable living trust, it's commonly used in estate planning, right? And when it comes to a revocable living trust, the grantor retains control over the assets, right? Usually that's the person, the grantor is the giver, and can revoke the trust at any time. So the grantor for a revocable living trust controls the assets and can revoke the trust at any time. So the IRS treats the trust and the grantor as the same taxpayer. This means that properties held in a revocable living trust can generally qualify for a 1031 exchange, provided that the same taxpayer rule is adhered to. All right. So, provided that the same taxpayer rule is adhered to. Okay, so that's for a revocable living trust. Now, number two, we have a an irrevocable trust. An irrevocable trust is one where the grantor, right, the person who has everything to put into the trust, relinquishes control over the assets and cannot revoke the trust. Oh man, it's getting a little crazy, right? So in this case, the trust, an irrevocable trust, is considered to be a separate taxpayer. They have nothing to do with that original person who put it in there. Remember, because they relinquish control over those assets and they cannot revoke the trust. So properties held in an irrevocable trust may still qualify for 1031 exchange, but it is essential to ensure that the same taxpayer rule is followed. The trust must be the entity conducting both the sale of the relinquished property and the acquisition of the like kind replacement property. So, really, when it comes to an irrevocable trust, we're talking about that entity has to be both the taxpayer of the sale of the relinquished and the acquisition of the replacement like kind property. And there's a lot involved here. Right. Hey, Carol, George, thank you so much for joining us. User 530. We appreciate it. Now, the third one that we're going to talk about when it comes to trusts are land trusts. Okay. A land trust is a type of trust specifically designed to hold real estate, right? It doesn't have to be just land either, but it's a specific kind of trust designed to hold real estate. So, similar to a revocable trust, the grantor can retain control over the trust and its assets. right? So if the land trust is revocable, it is generally treated as the same taxpayer as the grantor, allowing for a 1031 exchange. And if the trust is irrevocable, it will be treated as a separate taxpayer, and the same taxpayer rule must be followed. Okay. So, those hopefully you're getting the information and understanding when we talk about if the property is held in a trust, what the different types of trusts are: revocable living trust, irrevocable trust, land trust that is revocable, land trust that is irrevocable, right? So those are the three main ones: revocable, irrevocable, and land trust. And now you understand that the structure has to be taken care of and done the right way within the IRS regulations so that you do not avoid disqualification and ultimately have to pay those capital gains. All right, my friends, we're going to keep on going for a little bit. I want to talk to you, again, Therapy Thursday. It's so important to help you get through this time period. You just finished up your taxes, or maybe you had to do an extension. You don't know maybe what decisions to make, or maybe you need to help a family member or friend, and it's your mom or your dad or your uncle or your aunt or a property you inherited. And you're like, should we sell? Should we not sell? What about the tax implications? My maybe my accountant doesn't have time to talk to me about it. I'm not sure what to do. Well, we're giving you the basics. And we're also telling you that I have experts, right? Tax and legal advisors that I can put in place to help you. Okay. So this next question is, and especially when it comes to partners, right? When it comes to siblings, what if my property is owned by a partnership and not all partners want to exchange? Oh man, how should we handle that? What if my property is owned by a partnership and not all partners want to exchange? So let's talk about this. When multiple partners own a property and not all partners wish to participate in a 1031 exchange for this investment property, one common strategy is the drop and swap approach. Man, I like that one. Quote unquote, the drop and swap approach. So, what is the drop and swap approach? Well, this involves distributing the property to individual partners as tenants in common before the exchange, right? So, again, there could be some sort of quick claim and so forth, but basically, you distribute the property to individual partners as tenants in common before the exchange. And a lawyer and attorney will help us do that. Each partner can then independently decide whether to participate in the 1031 exchange or not. Another option is for the partnership to complete the exchange and then distribute the replacement property to the partners. Basically, you complete the exchange and then you distribute the like kind of property that you bought, the replacement property, to the partners. Both strategies require careful planning and compliance with IRS regulations. So be careful. Don't just go full steam ahead. Once again, I had someone that they decided to put their property on the market. They didn't talk with me. Um, I came with a buyer for the property, and the seller mentioned to me when I was there, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do because now when I sell this property, I found out I'm going to pay a lot of capital gains taxes. And I said, well, did you discuss a 1031 exchange? Oh, my agent didn't mention that. My attorney, nobody mentioned that. We didn't even get a chance to talk about it. I just put the property on the market with this guy that my son wanted me to sell the house. I mean, to sell the property with. It's basically a six. uh, I can't remember. It was a 6 or 8 unit property. This was a long time ago. Let's say I think it was a 6 unit. Okay. Yeah, because it's 3 stories and 2 units on each floor. Boom, 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 boom. I didn't even think about it. Well, at the time, my buyer was buying this property for about 600,000 or so. It was right around $100,000 a unit, and I think the guy he he probably only had, I think, like a $50,000 loan. So that's $550,000 worth of capital gains if you just kind of do a basic, straightforward, equity calculation. Hopefully he had a lot of deductions for improvements and so forth, but you never know. The point is that he didn't talk with anyone about it, and it was basically at that point it was too late. We already had a signed purchase and sale agreement. We talked to someone and they said no, it was too late, right? So things have to be done with planning and compliance. So make sure if you're thinking about selling this investment property, give me a call. We will consult with the experienced, right? I work with people that I'm experienced. I know what it means to have experience and knowledge and wisdom, right? Wisdom is so important because wisdom to me comes a lot of times from a caring heart and they're looking out for you just a little bit more. Experienced tax and legal advisors to help us navigate the complexities and make sure there's a successful exchange. So all you need to do is give me a call, 860-558-2122, or just put in the comments, hey Rob, I want to talk with you about the 1031. Rob, I want to talk with you. It was on Therapy Thursday about the value versus the cost of remodeling. That's what we went over today. Okay. So now I have a couple more points I do want to mention with you. What happens if you're selling in the name of an LLC, right? So once again, we're talking about 1031 exchanges for investment properties. And let's say you have the property in an LLC. What financing challenges will you face if you're selling in the name of an LLC? So for an LLC who is selling in the LLC name, right, and is planning on financing the replacement property purchase in order to stay in accordance with what? The same taxpayer rule, which that's what we went over earlier, the same taxpayer rule. The loan must also be obtained in the name of the LLC. So again, the loan to get that replacement property must be obtained in the name of the LLC. And sometimes that is hard to accomplish with lenders, right? Sometimes the certain banks will not do it. They want to see that there's a guarantor, that it's in a specific person's name. So do you need a solution? Do you need to talk with that right lender? Hello, Wesley. Hello, K Star. Hey, Liz. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you need to talk with that right financing institution so that the financing challenge can also be turn out to be a solution for you? Yes, because we need a good vesting solution. Hello, Water Model, Yvonne, Carol. Definitely appreciate you joining us. All right, what we're talking about now on Therapy Thursday on real estate is the 1031 exchange process, right? And of course, all your likes and shares are definitely appreciated. And we are talking a little bit about what happens if you sell in the name of an LLC. So we have to make sure that the loan is also obtained in the name of the LLC. There are some exceptions to this rule. While that same taxpayer rule is generally strict, well, what are some of the exceptions? Okay. We have to make sure that the right entities that are regarded for federal income tax purposes are according to that same taxpayer rule. Okay. So we have to make sure that we understand what that is, and we can talk more about some of those exceptions when it comes down to those exceptions and understanding what happens? Well, here are some of them, okay? Because we do not want to destroy what they call destroy the integrity of the exchange, of the 1031 exchange. So here's some exceptions. The exchanger's revocable living trust or other grantor trust may acquire their replacement property in the name of the exchanger individually as long as the trust entity is disregarded for federal tax purposes. Okay, so that can get a little bit confusing depending on how much you know about trust and so forth. But if we need to get more involved in that, we can. What's another um, change in vesting that does not destroy, right, the vesting of the integrity of the exchange? The exchanger's estate may complete the exchange after the exchanger dies following the close of the sale of the relinquished property. So I guess some people had questions on this document that I'm reading about, well, what happens if the exchanger dies during the middle of it? Well, if they die following they can complete the exchange, even if they die following the close of the sale. A married couple may exchange relinquished property. So remember, when we say relinquished property, what we're talking about is the sold property. So a married couple may exchange the property that they're selling, held individually as community property, for replacement property titled in a two-member LLC, in which the married couple's ownership is community property. So that's in community property states. Um, let's see here, right? So remember my notes, I'm reading it through it. To avoid disqualifying the exchange, consistent vesting is key, right? We have to make sure that the scenarios are held to, and that really, when it comes down to it, there's no issues with that. So basically, when we talk about the conclusion of this part of our call, of this part of our post today, our live call on Therapy Thursday, is we want to make sure that we do not prevent disqualification of the exchange, right? So that the exchanger should not make any changes to the vesting, to the ownership, to the names of the relinquished property, which is the property you're selling, or the replacement property, which is the like kind property you're buying before or during the exchange. That's really the important part. So if names are going to be changed from when you're selling to when you're buying, we have to make sure that we talk first to the right people. Otherwise, in the long run, you're probably, or you most likely or could have a problem with the 1031 exchange. So again, if you have questions about that, you're not sure, you really don't know what to do or how to go about it, please reach out to me, Rob Rosa, 860-558-2122. Quick, simple, and easy. We can help you understand what it is you want to do and what you're looking to do so that you will be able to hopefully, right, defer 1031, or hopefully be able to defer capital gains through a 1031 exchange. So that's what I have today concerning Therapy Thursday. Now, just to kind of go over a couple of other things, and if you have questions, hey, Patsy, Ernest, Yvonne, please put it in the comments. I'm here for you to be able to answer your posts, your questions, and so forth. But Therapy Thursday, I'm going to tell you a little story about this seller that, and I'm not going to name names, that we're having a little concern or issue with. Now, if you know me, I put so much effort to working hard for my clients. Right. And we have this particular property for sale, and we spent a lot of time and energy. Now, when we got the listing, right, the seller told me, "Oh, I'm not happy. The last listing expired with another agent, right? And I'm not going to go with them because they brought me an offer and it was not what I liked, right? They actually brought him two offers and he didn't like the offers. So, Rob, can you sell it for more? So, I like to put things on record. And guess what? I have the courage to ask the hard questions. And I said, well, what did they sell the properties for? What did they give you offers for? And I wrote that down. Therapy Thursday, my friends. We're going through this stuff. So I wrote it down. This is what he sold this is what he got the offers on. And why didn't you take the offer? Well, first of all, it didn't seem like the price should be able to get more money. Okay. Well, why do you think you should be able to get more money? Because I see what things are selling for, right? I think see what how much properties are how fast they're selling. I should be able to get more. Can you get me more, Rob? And I said, I can definitely try, right? Here's my marketing plan. You tell me of this list of all these things that I do. And I spend money on, and I spend time on. Do you know if that last agent was doing these things? Nope. I don't think they were doing those, Rob. No way. And then I said, okay, well, do you think by me doing these things, we're going to be able to get you more money? Yes, Rob, I can see it. I can feel it. Okay. Well, let's get started then. Let's work on getting you the most money possible. So I did the things that I said that I was going to do. I just like doing that. Right? I did the things that I said I was going to do. And guess what? I got an offer. And it was about $12,000 higher than the previous two offers from the other agent. So, first of all, that's like another 4 or 5%, right? That's about 4 or 5% of what this person was going to get before, 4 or 5% more. So, I went to the seller and I said, "Hey, here's what I got for you. Hey, Dirty, Patsy, Nick, Biv, definitely appreciate you joining us. If you like what we're talking about on Therapy Thursday, then please feel free to give me some likes and shares. Definitely appreciate it, everyone. Or put your comments in the message below. I appreciate it. So we're talking about this seller that wanted to get more money, and here I come up, by spending a lot of money and a lot of time on my marketing, which is what I do. I gave him an offer with more money. And guess what happened? He says it still wasn't enough. So I guess and so now we decided not to take that offer. And for a property that basically should be sold already, now it's starting to sit a little bit. Right. And I guess what I'm telling you on Therapy Thursday is yes, we all want to save the most money possible when buying a property. Yes, we all want to make the most money possible when selling a property. Hey, Tatiana, thank you so much for joining us. But we can't be greedy, right? We have to be somewhat reasonable to understand, hey, as this example showed, I did another market valuation and I showed him how we were about $12,000 higher than the last property that sold in that complex. It's a condo, and that still was not good enough, right? And so here we are. We're waiting now, and we're kind of at the point that if you don't take one of those offers, what starts happening? People think that there's something wrong with the property. People think that there's an issue with that unit. And there is no issue except for the point that that seller, particularly at this point, wants to be unreasonable. So on Therapy Thursday, I guess where I'm going to leave you is be a reasonable person. Understand, try to get rid of maybe that bias or what you want. For many of us, it's like we want to be the center of the universe and we're just stuck in our old mind, in our own mind. But think about, hey, Well, what's going on in the marketplace? And in the marketplace, does this make sense? You want to buy a property. What's going on in the marketplace? And in the marketplace, does this make sense? More than often than not, too, as me being a main seller's agent, I get offers, and sometimes it's like the purchase and sale agreement, like it's $60,000 above asking price. And I actually have to go back to the buyer's agent and say, we like this offer after reviewing it with the seller. Hey, we like it, but what do you think the chances are that it's going to appraise? Because it's not making sense. And the seller doesn't necessarily want to take that chance. Why should they? So are you willing to do an appraisal gap coverage? Oh no, we're not willing to do that. Then how do you think you're going to make an offer for 60,000? Because there are some agents out there these days that they're having their seller make these crazy offers just to get the offer accepted, and then they come back during the inspection or the appraisal and negotiate it way down. So we have to be careful of what's happening out there in the marketplace. So, once again, my friends, it is Therapy Thursday. As a reminder, I am here. I am available. I gave you some really detailed information about 1031 exchanges. I gave you data about reports of remodeling, the joys versus the value. And then I gave you a couple explanations about what's going on and with buyers and sellers, and are we being reasonable? Are we getting out of our own mind? Do we understand the marketplace? So feel always free to give me a call if you have questions nationwide, right? I help people with credit repair. I help people with the real estate pre-licensing classes, and of course with buying, selling, residential and commercial. My phone number is 860-558-2122, and I'm Rob Rosa. Hopefully, your favorite real estate broker. All right, my friends. God bless you. I hope things are going great for you, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.